Hi everybody, welcome back. This video this morning is about starting with chickens, and this is normally the way that people who have gardens and have been producing their own fruit and vegetables move into keeping livestock. Be under no illusions, chickens are livestock. If you live in the UK, you can have up to 49 birds before you have to register with DEFRA. Most people start out with a few. I started 22 years ago with 4 hens, which vastly exploded into quite a lot of hens. But for most people, having a couple of chickens around the place gives them the opportunity to have eggs. If you're thinking about meat production, you could have meat birds or keep dual purpose birds, which you can have eggs from and also to eat. So this video is going to explain everything that you need to know about starting with chickens, what's involved, what the rules are, what equipment you need. It's a bit about how to look after them and the time involved and the cost. So keep watching. Hope you find it interesting. So let's talk about essentials. If you keep any number of poultry, you will need secure accommodation for them. So you can go down the route of a wooden chicken house or a plastic chicken house. It needs to be big enough for the amount of chickens that you have. And normally, if people are starting out, they'll have 3 or 4 hens, and you can have a reasonably sized, reasonably cheap chicken house. So these are available to buy new. You can buy them second hand, or you can make one yourself. Now, when we lived in our small holding in Cornwall, we made all our own chicken houses. And when I say all our own chicken houses, at our peak point of chicken keeping, we had 90 hens divided into 7 breeding groups. So we had 7 proper chicken houses. We also had a broody box if we were raising chicks under a broody hen. And all of the chicken houses had detachable runs so that we could move them around the garden and they would be protected if we were out for any amount of time. And this is one of the crucial things you'll need to think about: protection at night. And if you're off the small holding or out of your garden for any length of time, opportunists will take the opportunity to come and either take eggs or take birds themselves. Now, this may be foxes, this may be buzzards, which is rare, I've got to say. It might be neighbouring dogs. We've had this. And it may also be stoats or weasels or mink. So you've got to think about protection for your birds. Birds will naturally go in at dusk and they will need let out again in the morning. So there is a bit of time involved in that, and you have to be aware that you'll need to let them out first thing in the morning and put them away and secure them in at dusk. So some companies do provide automatic door openers. We never ever used this, but we always manually let our chickens out in the morning whenever we get up, which was about 8 o'clock, just before I did the school run for the children. So housing. What else will you need? You will need a feeder. This can be as simple or as complicated as you like. We started off with simple plant pot trays on the ground, and because that was attracting mice and we didn't want to attract rats, we very quickly moved to fence mounted rainwater guttering closed off at both ends, which kept the food off the ground and also was easy to clean out if we needed to do that. Waterers, plastic milk containers. These are great for holding water, you turn it on its side, keep the cap on, make sure you've washed it out properly, and then cut a hole in the top. This is quite good because plastic water containers go green in the summer, and that's not good for the chickens, so you can discard them, recycle that, and simply cut yourself another one. There are bespoke water containers, but these are obviously pricier. So have a think about what you want to do. There's lots of ideas on the internet. What else will you need? Well, basically nothing unless you plan to breed chickens, but that is a subject for another video. So something to put your food in, something to put water in, secure housing, and a secure run. That's all you need for starters. So what are the rules that you need to be aware of if you intend to keep chickens? Well, as long as you keep under 50 hens, there are no official rules. You can voluntarily register with DEFRA, but you have no legal obligation to do so unless you have 50 or more hens. Now, the flip side of that is if you keep hens and you live in a house in an urban or suburban area, you will have neighbours. And if you keep your chickens in an unsanitary space, apart from the fact that you're not doing your birds any good at all, and probably not yourself either. You may have a rodent problem, you may have a smell issue, you may have a fly issue. Your neighbours are going to let you know. They might not tell you directly, but they may go straight to your local council if you live in the UK, or if you live in Europe, they may go to your mayor's office. I don't know what the situation would be in the USA, but I'm sure your neighbours will let you know. Now, as a chicken keeper, I used to keep cockerels because I used to breed rare breed hens. Now, I lived in the country, having a cockerel wasn't an issue. I had 8 breeding sets, so I had 8 cockerels. That's quite a bit of noise. Now, if you live in an urban or a suburban area, one cockerel crowing will certainly let you know how good your neighbour relations are. So you don't need to keep a cockerel to have eggs. You don't need to keep a cockerel unless you're going to breed chickens. So my advice, if you're starting with poultry, don't go down the cockerel route. It really is unnecessary unless you really are living in the countryside or you have extremely tolerant neighbours. And just remember, neighbours change, and it's no good you saying, well, the cockerel was here before the neighbours. Most councils really don't take that into account. So, over 50 hens, you have to register your flock, and you need to get a county parish holding number if you're in the UK, or a cheptel number if you're in France. Just check what your local regulations will be. There is bound to be something, so I advise you to check. So let's talk about one of the harsh realities of life and death. If you have any livestock, then at some point you will have to deal with dying or dead animals, and you have a duty of care to any livestock, and this includes chickens. So what you need to be aware of, if you buy hybrid point of lay brown hens, they are genetically engineered to pop out an egg every single day from the time that they are point of lay until basically they are spent. Now, these birds, because they produce on an industrial scale, will normally live 2 to 3 years maximum. If you get longer than that, that's doing really well. So at some point you will go out in the morning to let them out, and you may find a dead hen in the hen house, or during the day it will just topple over and peg out, having its best life in a beautiful garden or green meadow, but you will have to deal with that. If you keep rare breed birds, these tend to live a little bit longer because their productive life isn't so industrial. I think the oldest bird I had was 9. It had stopped laying at about 5 year old, but it kept going, kept eating, kept costing me money until it was 9 years old, and then it just gave up and died a peaceful death. Now, your hens may not always have a peaceful death. Remember, you have predators, and there is also illness and disease. So you need to be aware that you have a duty of care. You need to have a vet's number, preferably one who knows about poultry. And unfortunately, in the UK, these are pretty few and far between. So the cost of taking a sick bird to the vet, you will need to weigh up against the sentimentality that you have as a chicken keeper. So your chickens may be there to make you money, or they may be treasured pets, but either way, you can't let a bird suffer. You need to deal with a situation. Now, I had a situation in Cornwall where one of our neighbouring farm dogs had gone a wandering, jumped over the wall when our chickens were free ranging. Now, this dog killed a couple of chickens, but also injured a few. Now, when I had arrived back from dropping the children off at school, apart from dealing with the carnage of chicken carcasses lying in the field, I had to also deal with the dog. And then once that was off the property, I had also to deal with chickens that had puncture wounds. Now, a lot of the birds had gone into shock, and the kindest thing for me to do was to euthanize them very quickly, very calmly. If you're not up to that, then you either need to find someone who will do it for you, and that is the quickest, kindest, and cheapest option, or you need to put that bird into a cardboard box and take it to the vet, where he will charge you a fair amount of money to euthanize that for you. So be aware of death and dying, illnesses, and your responsibility as a pet owner. Now, let's look at eggs. So if you have, say, 3 hens and you've bought them at point of lay, which means they're just reaching their adult life and they're starting to lay eggs, you will soon have 3 eggs a day, which when you work it out over a couple of weeks is rather a lot of eggs. Now, unless you have a really large family or you're extremely fond of eggs, you will start to have a surplus of eggs. Now, you can bake with them, you can cook with them, you can make ice cream with them, but soon you're going to start thinking, I really should be selling some of these eggs. Maybe you've decided to go into poultry keeping purely to sell eggs. Whether or not that's profitable or not is another question for another time. However, you have a surplus of eggs. You decide you want to sell eggs. What are the rules for that? Now, on this channel, there is a video about selling eggs if you're in the UK. I don't know what the rules are here in France or in any other country because, number one, they change so frequently, and number two, I don't know when you're watching this video, and I want to make sure the information is up to date. But At this moment in time in the UK, if you keep less than 50 hens and you simply want to sell your excess eggs at the farm gate, there are no regulations for that. For a hygiene point of view, I would suggest that you get yourself some brand new little cardboard egg boxes and that you basically only sell fresh eggs. Now, you're obviously going to sell more if your eggs are nice and clean and they're packaged nicely. So, clean cardboard box. You may want to stick a label on the front that you can make yourself at home just to say when the eggs were laid and the best before date. In the UK, this is 28 days after the date of lay. And it will look just like you have a kind of keep an eye on that if you have a big surplus of eggs. If you want to take them into your work and sell them, that's fine too. But you cannot sell them to shops, restaurants, or use them. If you run a bed and breakfast, you cannot use your own eggs for that business. There are a lot of rules about selling to a third party, and if you sell your eggs to a shop and they sell them on to someone else, that's a third party. If you, as a hen keeper, sell yourself the eggs as a bed and breakfast owner, then you cook those for someone else, that is a third party. So just be aware of that. There are rules about it, but if you have if your chickens lay eggs and you then take them in and you sell them at your workplace, that is not a third party. That is you're selling direct to the consumer. Just be aware of that.